everybody. Welcome to the Everything Voiceover podcast. My name is Justin D. Torres. I am here with Brian Hansbury.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on in here.
Absolutely.
Brian is an amazing musical improviser, along with a kick-ass voiceover guy. Promos, is that your big deal?
I mostly do promos now, yeah.
Nice, nice. Before we get into the interview, I want to actually listen to the demo for a second because I feel like it shows a lot about how much you can do with versatility in your own voice. So let's go ahead and check it out now. Is that cool?
Yep.
Why shop TJ Maxx and Marshalls? 1, you get all the awesome brand names. 2, you get them for less than department stores, and that's awesome. 3, she'll think you look stylish and awesome. 4, you'll actually be awesome, which is awesome. TJ Maxx and Marshalls, 2 awesome ways to score.
Hey, all you explorers out there, I'm broadcasting live from the back of a blue whale to tell you that kids go free on all excursions with Norwegian Cruise Line. From a dog sled adventure in Alaska to parasailing with the gulls, little Norwegians go free on all excursions.
Get Gillette Irritation Defense Shave Gel and Gillette Fusion Pro Glide Razor to help defend against 5 signs of shaving irritation. Try Gillette Fusion Pro Glide and the Irritation Defense Line. Help defend your skin.
Welcome to Walmart. What you doing?
Getting warmed up for Walmart's Red Balloon clearance event.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Saving 50% off of Walmart's already low prices on a store-wide selection.
With over 60,000 on-demand choices on TV and online, satellite can't compete. Only with Xfinity from Comcast. It's even more irresistible.
So good.
Three Musketeers now has more chocolate taste than before.
What adds a little kick to just about anything? It's the zip of Miracle Whip.
Okay, so when I listen to that demo, usually when people get onto the microphone, they have a different voice. But I feel like your voice, regular, sounds very similar to the voice there. You know, there's not like a difference between like a voiceover voice and your voice. And plus, you've got so much versatility in between the lines, so you can do like a promo that's like happier. You've got different timbres and whatnot, different pitches. I was wondering, I guess how did you figure out how to get so comfortable on mic and yet so versatile when it comes to different spots?
So I guess this will bring us to like a little history where when I first had the idea of I would like to do voiceovers, my original thought was, I grew up making voices and entertaining my friends by like imitating silly characters or whatever. And so without really understanding that, animation happens in LA and commercial happens in New York, as like a young 20-something, I was just like, I can make interesting voices. I'll pursue voiceover. And I quickly learned that it's not really, eventually, if you're lucky enough to get into animation, like sure, that's useful. But in terms of the commercial world of voiceover, it's not about being able to sound like someone else. It's being able to do as much as you can with your own voice and make different changes to your own voice. In terms of how I became able to do that or anything like that, we had sort of spoken before a little bit about mimicry. And for me, that's a lot of what it boils down to. It's, I grew up, we grew up listening to just announcers, right? Totally. The only thing that existed was, and why I think I'm doing this now is because I was fascinated by these people who didn't talk like regular people, right? They had crazy voices and were just over the top in their enthusiasm or whatever, no matter really what the product was, right? It was just the status quo. And so I've just come to learn, that it's really just about what you can do with your own voice, but I'm still mimicking. There's still those announcer sort of patterns and sort of phrasings and stuff that still exist and people still want. Increasingly, that's still going away. The general trend is conversational. Please be as conversational or as real or shrug it off the shoulder as possible. And that happens a lot in I'm going to go all over the place, but that happens a lot in auditions where they want you to do that. Yet you still know that once that commercial is booked, the client will probably be on the phone back and forth, and it will end up being smiley, overtly announcer that you end up hearing. But in terms of auditions and things like that, especially, I mean, the trend, and in reality as well, like, you know, MTV, for example, couldn't be more like understated in a lot of ways in their voiceover and stuff like that over the last couple of years. And so, yeah, that's sort of this notion of like mimicry and just watching commercials and like understanding. It's just something that was sort of intrinsic for me. Just like, this is how a commercial's supposed to sound. I mean, you can only, you know, you can only write like a novel if you've read some other novels. You know what I mean? I mean, you could, I guess, but it would be pretty weird.
So when you listen to commercials, are you listening to like the inflections or like the rhythm of, do you hear it like music? For example, when I've found that a lot of voiceover clients, when they ask me for conversational, and then they keep going, more conversation, more, they really just want, what do you call it, like clipped, like just talking, not necessarily having any enthusiasm whatsoever.
Right.
So when I listen to commercials, I hear the rhythm. Like there was that one commercial where it was like, get up, work, eat, that kind of stuff. But I hear it in rhythm. But other people might hear it as like how the notes are going up and down. I'm curious what.
Yeah. So for that kind of a thing, I mean, you know, and of course for that commercial, there was like a reference to a commercial that had already happened that they like provided you with before the audition. And so in terms of like the musicality and cadence, like those are important. But for me, maybe even more so, it's like attitude. It's like listening for what the like sort of attitudinal tone is, you know? Like if John Hamm does something, it's like sort of like a muted, like cocksure attitude, right? Like if he's doing like one of his car things, you know? And in general, a lot of other commercial stuff that isn't, you know, cars or like rough or gruff is just like a smile really will do the trick. And it's more about like, and that smile is just like that attitude that's in your body, like behind your voice, you know, and that all just bleeds through.
Yeah, you get the momentum and you just keep on going. Yeah, attitude, like acting is probably the number one thing that all voiceovers people should go after anyway, to be able to, and even improv helps out in that aspect, to be able to know what your driving force is. Let's now doing a promo, like, let's say if you got a run of like an hour or two, like you already did work today. Do you have to get up? Do you have to get up early? Do you work out? Do you do like runs or stuff?
So I have always done the wrong thing, right? Like in my 20s, living in New York City, I would go out, I would drink till late, I would, stay out late, and I would just like sort of get by. And inevitably, if I had some sort of audition, it would be that day that like it was for a super gruff like kind of sound,
cool.
you know? I've been lucky in that way. Increasingly now, I do some sort of vocal warm up in the shower. Like today, I knew that I had a gig at 11:30. So, I'm lucky enough that, it's not like I have to be up at 7, but I made sure to wake up maybe like 2 hours before that so that I could give myself a little bit of time for my voice to adjust. Voices are never good really in the morning. I mean, you can warm up, if you wake up and it's early and you have something that you need to do or record, like at least give yourself like a good solid warm up. It'll just be better for you. Yeah, so I would say I used to work, I have like all these sinus issues that I've dealt with over the years. So I used to actually, yes, before auditions or jobs, I would go and like anxiously get on a treadmill and run faster than I've ever run before just to try and clear myself up. But yeah, I would say good practice is to warm up, Yeah,
I mean, even when I have an audiobook, I've been trying not to just get up 2 hours beforehand and just be late to the place. And like just something about actually booking the gig makes it less important than actually auditioning for a gig. I've seen you in audition rooms. We've both been in audition rooms, and you've got this energy. You've got really positive, cool energy, really nice guy. Even when we were doing musical improv back in the day, you were always just really nice, really positive. And I see that bleed into the audition room, and I almost wonder, like every time you come in, I was like, this guy's already done a bunch of work for these guys because he's so so natural and comfortable. How important is it to work well with clients?
So I think it's paramount because there's very little that we can do on our end. It's not like we can, I literally don't know how real business works, but it's not like we can work extra hard to like, add to a presentation or do something, we have very few options for the traditional career, best practices and like networking and all those things. So the only thing I can really do is be easy to work with, And so, and there's a lot of, there's always been, I don't know what words I can say or not say on this podcast, but, they've always heard when I first was doing it, it's like, oh, like the jerks, always are the ones who book or whatever. Well, that could be the one way that some person gets their jobs, but that's kind of a foolish approach. And so I just want to be on time. I want to be positive and, someone who they're like, oh, that guy was, I show my personality. Hopefully it's not weird and off-putting. And they're like, oh, that's like a cool regular person that I want to have around me when I'm doing my 9-to-5 job, So just try to make it as easy as possible for them in any way. One thing I do, just because I feel like I have a little bit of a copywriter in me as well. I mean, there's times when if I hear the clients, like say you're at a job and you're in the booth and there's a bunch of people from the ad agency or whatever, like on the other side of the glass, and if I hear them sort of trying to figure out like how best blah blah blah, like what if we said this or this? If I have I'd also just trust my instincts in that regard. I don't know if I would advise everyone to just like offer their opinion all the time. In fact, I'd say probably generally don't. But if you have what you believe is like a simple solution and you phrase it, in a way where you're not saying I have exactly the right way, but if you're like, maybe this could help, just be positive, just be helpful. And just be a mensch, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for my first couple of actual jobs that I ended up doing, and I still have this like tendency to be like, want to be as businessy as possible. Walk in, just get on the thing, shut up, make sure to take the direction, be a good actor. But that ends up probably coming off as standoffish. And I see people like you and a friend of mine. I was listening to her do it. She cursed whenever she messed up or something like that. Just it was entirely like she was on the phone with a friend, and that felt like it was so much more cooler and so much more like I'd want to work with that person. Whereas like if someone hears someone just doing the job well and not necessarily putting in like some kind of energy or character in there, that they might not be coming back and the fun person who comes in. So were you always like that, or did you always have that kind of personality, or did you have to work on it?
I have grown increasingly more positive and buoyant over the years. I mean, I was never a curmudgeon per se, but that's just part of me working on myself in my own personal life of just, there's no reason I feel to dwell on negative things or to like, if you smile, your body responds. Like that's, I don't know, is that scientifically proven, right? Like the more you smile, the more positive you're going to be. It's just, I think it's a helpful tool in life to try and be as positive as you can be. So
yeah, totally. Let's talk a little bit about The Farce Awakens. Now that's like all over the pit this month, right? This February. Let's see. I remember hearing it from. So which character are you this time?
I am Chewbacca, and I also. I guess I haven't seen it, but I guess in Rogue One, they really went over sort of like the architects and how they have influenced and compromised the Death Star and all these planets. So I also play a character that sings a pretty funny song that sort of explains, why there's these like flaws in these Death Stars and Starkiller bases and stuff.
Oh, the whys, yeah. The fan theories. Jody Shelton, did he write this or was it?
He wrote it with 2 other people.
Oh, cool. Because I love Jody. Have you ever heard Daughter and Son, like his music?
I have heard a little bit of it, yeah. Jody's just a wildly talented person who's also like a great person. So what should we expect? What's the pitch for this amazing? It's a parody, right? It's written music, not necessarily improvised, even though you guys are stacked with improvisers. Yeah, nothing is improvised. Although certainly, in this process of workshopping it, some jokes have been altered and some things have happened. But it's a completely scripted musical. Jody has had a lot of success with other musicals that he's written. He wrote 50 Shades the musical, parody musical. And yeah, like the songs are really, really great. A bunch of the songs, some of them are really gorgeous and they're really funny. I went back and watched the Force Awakens after having, gone through the script for the show a couple times. And its parody is so, when you see the parody and then you see it compared to the thing that it's parodying, if it's good, it's like, oh, this is so simple and easy.
Yeah.
There's this whole, we like sort of send up, the like sort of bromance between Finn and Poe Dameron. Like and I rewatched that scene and it's insane. Like their lives are in threat at any second. And it's like, hey, what are you doing, man? I don't know. I'm helping you. Okay, let's get out of here. And then they're like under threat of gunfire and they're just like, hey, by the way, what's your name? It's like, what, are you kidding me? So the writers were very, good at, drawing all those things out. It's a really fun show.
This is like the perfect time to do it because they're going to have they're going to average one Star Wars a year.
They are. And this is right. Like I was, as just a dumb idiot, I was like, how another movie's going to come out? How does this work? But it really is, The Force Awakens is really the origin story of this new world we're going to keep seeing and all that. So yeah, I think it's pretty good.
It's going to be a blast. The one thing that when I listen to a lot of voiceover podcasts, and there's a lot of information, a lot of time, like it's 15 minutes of people talking about how their day was, and then they talk about, and then, which I find is slightly useless, is people talking about how they got into the business, because everyone's going to have a different path.
Right.
And there's no way that one can follow one path and have any semblance of definite feeling that you're going to make it. So we're trying to go into like the how to attack the script, whether it's marking or even when you first started. So do you have any tactics that people can use when they're just starting out to help out with scripts?
Well, especially if it's like an in the room audition where you are just seeing that script, maybe 5 or 10 minutes before you end up going in, read the script. I think I'm pretty good, but it's insane to not read the script. And I've actually had, so I go on auditions and the other people in my auditions, I'm auditioning with all the people that are on all the TVs all the time. Like this is the world of like, this is where it's happening. These are like the top voiceover people. And this gets back to the networking thing, because I'll go in and especially if it's long, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this a couple times. I'm going to be, and so in reading it a couple times, you can't worry about getting like this one segment perfect or whatever, but in reading it a couple times, you can be aware, oh, okay, in this third paragraph, like I'm saying it this way because like this is where they're intending to go with their information or whatever. And many, many times I have been rewarded by having the casting director say, hey, I just want to say thank you. I can tell that you spent some time with the script outside. So that obviously suggests that these other guys who are probably making a lot more money than me or are successful, maybe they're sitting on their laurels, I don't know, but that they are basically aggravating this casting director. And in as much as we have very few opportunities to show who we are as professionals, read the script. It pays off. I've had more than one casting person who casts things all the time in New York City, like, thank me. And that makes you feel good too, because you're like, okay, even if I don't book this job, I did something right for myself and my career,
Wow, that's cool. Do you still occasionally take a coaching class, or is there like a great coach in your past that you always?
I have never, so not in like at least a decade. When I first decided maybe I should do this, I found a person who was an agent for on-camera stuff, but she had come from the voiceover world, and she sort of coached me for 4 sessions, and then we just agreed, okay, like record a demo. Like she was like, I think you can do this. Let's record a demo. And then I didn't take any classes since then. I do have a friend, Ed Lewis, who does teach a class, and I've sat in as like sort of like an industry professional in his class before. I think everything is kind of expensive in this world. I think compared to everyone else, I guess it's the same rates as everything else. I think he's a really great coach. He understands, And I think he's pretty good at, because one of the trickiest things, as I've learned trying to direct people myself, is like trying to direct someone in voiceover, like especially if they're not really sort of hitting what they have to hit. Yeah. And he's got a lot of like good sort of approaches and techniques for that. And then I really think listening to commercials and paying attention is really the ultimate coach, because you can read copy and all that and practice and do these things, but if what you're practicing doesn't sound like what's on TV or the radio, then there's like no real point. That's the world that you have to live in, and that's what you have to aim for, you know?
Yeah, my first coach that I came in, Dorian Elliott, she had people look up voices on Voice Bank that were similar to yours.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
The demo that they had. And it's good to know who you're up against and what they sound like, especially the ones that are booking, you know, because you want to sound like them but still have your own kind of a feel to it. Now, you said you were you've worked with voiceover actors trying to get that sound out of them. I think 90% of the time it's always because they've never been on mic before, or they just don't know how to feel regular. I mean, like, you see a script in front of you that almost, the writing doesn't sound real.
Right. It's not written the way people talk.
Yeah. So like, it's, on the one hand, you've got this double-edged sword of like, they want you to talk like you're normally talking, but they're not writing like people are talking.
I think that it's very natural for people to feel unnatural doing voiceover.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the biggest hurdle. For me, like, I sometimes joke, like, I'm soulless because I book like promo announcery stuff like more than other things, right? And it's like, yeah, all I can do is like smile and speak like loudly, you know? Otherwise I can't sound like a regular human, you know? That is an insanely difficult task. I am not sure. I mean, that's really up to that person to say to themselves, to gird themselves, to say, okay, this feels weird. I'm wearing headphones. I can hear my voice in my ears, and is what I'm saying good or bad? I don't know. You just have to go for it. And I think I'm glad that we're right here, because I think that, you know, in line with the coach question, improv is a great tool for everything. I mean, I got into improv because I was going on camera auditions after years of doing voiceover, and I was getting very nervous, like incredibly nervous. And I knew from having taken like 1 or 2 classes years and years prior that I knew that would be the thing that helped me. Like, you have to put your feet to the fire. You have to force yourself to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So I did improv, and while I had already been established in voiceover and I was pretty comfortable in most situations, you can get thrown something out of the blue and have to adapt to it a lot in this job. Nowadays, when I show up, I'm very lucky to have like 1 or 2 channels that like to use me. And so I show up and I think I'm going to do the show that they already used me on, but instead it's a new show, and I have to sound basically like a 50-year-old, like grizzled, you know, war veteran or something, you know? And I've had no practice, I've had nothing, right? And it's just, you got to do it. Like, I can't say like, I'm sorry, I'm going to leave. Like, you have to do it. And there's no better preparation for doing something on the spot than improv. I mean, it's the best.
A question about improvising when it comes to voiceover. Do you occasionally go off script with auditions?
Well, so there's increasingly a trend where on our end of things, I'm sure the people on the agency sides of things, in terms of advertising agencies, don't like this, but where the phrase is, they don't know what they want, or they just want you to write the commercial for them. And so sometimes there will be requests during the audition to ad lib. Sometimes during jobs, I know for like some radio spots for some banks or whatever, if it's like a 2-person and I'm like in a couple, they'll be like, just play with it, like riff back and forth or whatever. And even if you end up saying something dumb, you know, maybe you're going to say something great, like from one instance to the next. And then also, just in terms of like helping your career and boosting your career, certainly 100%. I get sent on more auditions than not all of them, just saying like it increases your number of auditions if your agent gets a request from a casting person or an agency and they're saying, we would like improvisers. Well, if you're an improviser, then you're winning out on being able to get that audition over a bunch of other people. A lot of times they want people who have the ability to ad-lib. They want people to sort of show their personality a little. And especially in radio spots where there's multiple people, that often is something that comes up.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I feel like the more conversational it is, the more you have freedom to do that kind of stuff. Going back into improv, so you're on Pyros, the musical improv team at the Magnet Theater, Tuesday night, Megawatt. Just so that people know, musical improv is where you take a suggestion from the audience and then it's an entire musical based on the suggestion itself. You guys are going on 2.5 years?
I have no idea.
No clue?
I joined after they were already formed, so I've been on there, I think maybe like 2 or 1.5 years, so.
I love Pyros because it's the most committed team, period, on Megawatt, because you guys hit things so hard. It's almost very similar to like how Pitt occasionally does their stuff, where it's like it's more committed, more musical-esque. So what's it like working with some really hardcore committed people on Pyros, and how is it?
Well, we talk about how we're just like all emotional people. And so what we've found is that everyone is willing to and down for just, you know, emoting or taking ourselves to places that are, you know, more strongly real. I mean, it's improv, it can get crazy and bizarre, but we're going to put like emotional investment into what we're doing. And it's sort of one of those things, I guess, where you can't really plan for it. You just have to sort of end up on a team where everyone is kind of like that. Yeah. And we're really blessed also to have all like good singers, which is not always the case in musical improv. And so we try to, you know, use that to our benefit. And yeah, it's as someone who especially plays emotionally, strongly emotionally, it is very nice to be surrounded by people who also, you know, like match that. It's great.
You guys are the ones who try different things all the time. Is it always agreed upon by the entire team, or is there just this feel of this ship moving forward and then we're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing how you can grow?
There is a team-wide ethos of non-conformity, I think.
Oh, okay.
And there is a desire on the part of the team to not do what everyone else is doing. That's maybe even more of a collective thing than just one individual like saying that. Certainly there's a few individuals who say like, I don't want to do a traditional opening number, which we haven't done in a very long time. And when I first joined the group, we were working with Leslie Collins, and she had us do organic exercises basically for 2 hours. Like the entirety of the rehearsal was just organic exercises. So that's where we sort of found like the voice that we've had for that time going forward. And it's really just, we are confident in each other. We're not always like assured that it's going to be a good show, you know, and doubt is something like the beauty of improv is basically having like a deeper relationship with doubt, right? And learning about yourself in that way. And so we're never really completely self-assured, but we have a willingness and a desire to buck trends or to just see what happens, you know.
It's very powerful to be able to say that we're going to be the ones that aren't like anyone else. I think that as a team, that if that's like a motto or a slogan, that's really good. It's really something everyone can delve into. 90% of the people who probably come to everythingvoiceover.com are newer people who are just looking, because there's a lot of caveats out there where, like, you know, you could easily lose thousands of dollars just by throwing money at the wall. So what would you tell a young voiceover actor who's trying to get into the business or curious or anything like that? Give advice to the younger people out there.
So I like to be positive, and this could be seen as negative, but this is the best piece of advice just for like realism's sake. Yeah. It's not easy. there is very little of a chance that you are going to make a career of it. And that is something that I know people who begin their classes by telling that to the people who come to the class. Totally, all the time. And it just doesn't behoove anyone. It's not in anyone's best interest to not be very realistic about this business, because increasingly there are fewer barriers to this business. You can have a computer and buy a mic and get involved, and that's awesome. And everyone who can and believes in themselves should do that and should go for it. But it is not an easy business, would be like my first piece of advice. My more positive path to success piece of advice is that for me, when I first got involved, and this was a longer time ago, this was when CDs were involved in this business, and I would look through Ross reports, which I don't even know if I guess that's probably online, that's a thing, which was like a listing of all of the agencies and casting directors, and then it had all of their names and which departments they were in. And so I would just make CDs, I would reprint CDs in my demo, and I would send them, cold send them to Liz Lewis Casting and all these things, and I would never hear back. And I thought that things like Actors Connection and other sort of pay-to-play things, I had this very pessimistic attitude that they were just scams or all this stuff. They're not scams. The number one good thing for you to do is once you feel confident, once you are, just willing to put yourself out there, go to Actors Connection. When there's a night where there's 6 agents who are going to be there, go there. When there's casting directors, go there. There's no other way you're going to break into this business. I broke into this business. We're not going to tell the story in too much of a length, but I broke into this business because I got a phone call from a guy who left the agency that he was working at to do some stuff at the place I recorded my demo at, and he just happened to look at my demo and then call me in. That's not a plan for success. So go to Actors Connection stuff. I mean, when I got some commercial representation for On Camera because I just went there and I auditioned, and later that week they called me in for an audition and I booked that job. So that's the only way to break into this business is to have the people who run the business know who you are.
And that isn't necessarily voice actors. Those are always agents or casting directors. You want to get in front of them. I mean, it's good to have be coached by other voice actors and whatnot, but if you want to spend your money wisely and you're up in New York, you want to see the casting directors, you want to see the agents. The Actors Connection is a constant thing for that. That's really great information for all.
And I mean, on the non-union side, which I know less about than you do, I mean, I would also think that finding a reputable coach and finding a reputable class is another good thing to do, because you're probably not just, meeting that whoever's running the class, who's more than likely an agent or a casting person. You're also meeting other people who are interested in voiceover and who are maybe also on the non-union side, and they might have ideas or they might have business to throw at you,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brian, for being on here.
Of course.
Where can people see you, and do you want to push anything before we head out?
Yeah, okay. I have, shows twice a week on Mondays at the Pit with my regular house team, Regina. Then I have Pyros on Tuesdays at the Magnet, Musical Megawatt. I do musical two-prov with my friend Beth Slack. We have a Facebook page that is Hansbury and Slack. And probably what I'm most excited about is I started a religion based on the tenets of improv, and it was really a one-man show where this religion lived. But now I am trying my hand at soothsayer, cult leader, I don't know. I'm going to start doing regular services of the mega team of improv at the People's Improv Theater. The first service is on April 13th. So a little far in the future, but I have to write a sermon. So
yeah. I checked out that video. It's hilarious. It's amazing.
Thanks, man. Yeah, improv and psychedelics, man. They'll change the world.
Right. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks a lot, dude. Right. Yeah.